Hi, I wanted to go over the junior high number sense test for this year, and I do want to mention before we go on that these are for free. So you guys can go to the UIL website and just type in Google A plus academics and just put like resources, and you all will get the versions, all these free versions of this test. But I wanted to go over the structure of it. So this is a 10-minute test, as you guys can see here, and there's 80 questions, and they all must be solved mentally. And then there are no calculations can be made with paper nor pencil. Now, I always recommend for students to use a blue pen just because it makes grading a lot easier. So if you're gonna use, a certain color pen, I always recommend the blue one. And as far as the spaces that are provided, like here, you do need to write your answer in the spaces provided. And anytime you see an asterisk like that, that's an approximation question. So for instance, this one here, your answer can fall within a certain range. So for example, when you have your answer key over here for all the ones that are multiple of tens, your answer, if it falls between these two digits, then it's considered to be the correct answer. And there's a certain strategy. So like any multiple of 10, your answers must fall within this range and it's considered to be correct, okay? Now, what I'm gonna do is I created some study guides for the kids to master 1 through 10. And once they master 1 through 10, then they go over to 11 through 20, and so on and so forth. So right now, what I'm going to go over is just some basic rules on what to think about. But if you want the study guide, let me know, and I can share that with you as well. So here's some of the rules that I recommend for you guys to kind of keep in mind when you're coaching, or if you yourself are actually taking the test. You need to write your final answer, so there can't be any scratch work. Like if you wrote a 29, but you meant to write like a 24, you can't scratch it off and then circle that one. So whatever you wrote down is your final answer. So there's absolutely no scratch work. Okay, and then any erasures, is it crossouts or markovers or markouts are considered to be incorrect. So just be conscious of that. Okay. Another one that I see very common is sometimes, people write extra marks, like maybe they put like a 9 and they put a point. That's considered to be incorrect. Or if they put like the symbol, the money symbol or the percent symbol, a lot of times those are considered to be incorrect because these will already be provided for you on the test, on the space provided. So just be conscious of that. So commas, this one's a big one here. So commas can be dangerous. So these are allowed. This is allowed with no commas, and this one's allowed with comma, but it must be written in the proper space provided. So if you put something down like this, even though the numbers are correct, because the commas were written in the wrong place, it's considered to be incorrect. The next one is extraneous zeros. This one's a big one, okay? So whenever, especially in the middle school test, if you write down 0.16, that's considered to be correct, but because you wrote 0.16, that is incorrect. 16 is allowed, but you can't write 0.16, or even another example is like 0.160. That's not allowed either. You can't write those extraneous zeros. Now, what is allowed though is whenever you have the dollars, if it's dollars and cents, if you have $23, you need to put the 2 zeros, because then it would be considered incorrect if you just write $23. So everything must be written to the nearest cent when it comes to money. Okay, so that's a common mistake. Another common mistake for this one is decimals are allowed only if the answer is exact. If a decimal is repeating or irrational, it must not be written as a decimal. So for instance, 0.3 repeating, if that would be something wrote down that would be incorrect, they would need to write the 1/3. So any repeating decimals must be written as a fraction. And then no rounding, obviously. So if they would have written 3.333, then that would be incorrect. It would need to be written as 1/3. Improper fractions are allowed, and a lot of times they'll put, like, if it's wanting to be written as a mixed number or an improper fraction, if it doesn't say anything at all, anything goes. So if they want to write as an improper fraction, that's fine, or a mixed number, that's fine. But like this is an example of an improper fraction, but it needs to be in the lowest terms. So this would not be allowed, nor this. It would need to be written in the simplest terms. Okay, now for the last one that I was mentioning, for any multiples of 10, you have a 5% margin of error. So if your answer is within the range that's provided, So let's say, for instance, 1,286 and 4,280. If your answer falls between there on the approximation problems, then it's considered to be correct, okay? There's not going to be any decimals or and stuff like that for the approximation problems. The student writes one integer, not the range. So whenever they write down their answer, it's not the range they're writing down. They're just going to write down one integer, and that's very helpful because a lot of times with these approximation problems, having to approximate to the nearest decimal sometimes can be very tricky. So your answer for these multiples of 10 will always be in terms of integers. Okay, one of the other ones that I was mentioned before, so you don't need to write any of these symbols if it's already printed. So for instance, if they ask you how much money is 25 nickels, just as an example, in the space provided, they will already put the dollar symbol. So don't write the dollar symbol again, because then it's going to be incorrect. Just a couple things that are, pretty self-explanatory, but make sure that, you whatever you write down or whatever you coach your kids, make sure that it's legible so that the grader can read it, because sometimes it's not very clear and sometimes they'll count it wrong. Another important point too is every test is worth 5 points. I'm sorry, every correct answer is worth 5 points, and every incorrect answer or skipped, you take away 4 points. So you can get a negative score in this one if you're not careful. So they won't so whenever we're grading, let's say your last answer was your last problem that you answered was number 10. So that'll be the last one that you'll be counted as not skipped. So anything like 11, 12 won't count against you if that was the last one. Anything before that you skipped will be minus 4 points. Okay, so just a quick heads up on those. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out.